Hi friends, this is the first section of the Spring Boot Security and JWT tutorial series. Today we'll be looking at what is JWT, how JWT authorization works. For this I'll be taking reference of my website javanews.com. So go to web series. In web series, click on Spring Boot Security JSON Web Token Complete Tutorial Series. The topic that we'll be covering today is understanding the need for JSON Web Token. Let us first cover some basic points regarding JWT. So JWT stands for JSON Web Token. It can also be pronounced as JOT. It is an open standard RFC 7519. By open standard we mean that it is publicly available and anyone can use it. JWT makes it possible to communicate securely between two bodies. So this point we'll be covering it in this tutorial as well as in the next tutorial when we'll be looking at the basic structure of JWT. And finally, JWT it is used for authorization. Let us first understand what is authorization and the need for it. In order to understand authorization, we'll be taking example of user interaction with Gmail. So consider a scenario where a user wants to access his Gmail inbox page. For this, the user will be interacting with the Gmail server. For this, he will be sending HTTP requests to Gmail server, and in response, he will expect that the Gmail server will send him the inbox page. So this is how the user interaction with Gmail will work. Suppose initially the user he will want to log into Gmail. For this, he will be hitting the URL /login along with username and password. The Gmail server will authenticate the user using the credentials passed. If the user is successfully authenticated, then the Gmail server will send him the inbox page. Now suppose the user he wants to look at all the mails that he has previously sent. So for this he will be making a HTTP request to Gmail server using the URL /sentmail in order to access the sent mail page. The user will expect that the sent mail page will be sent as response by the Gmail server. However, this will not work. This is because HTTP it is a stateless protocol. Let us understand what do we mean by HTTP is a stateless protocol. So, as the name suggests, no state is maintained by HTTP. So, in case of HTTP protocol for the Gmail server, each request is from a new user. The Gmail server cannot distinguish between new and returning users. So, for the Gmail server, even though this user has already logged in using the credentials previously, still this sent mail request, it is a new request. He does not know that this request has been sent by a user who is already authenticated. So the Gmail server cannot distinguish between new users and returning users because HTTP is a stateless protocol. One solution to this problem can be that the user will have to send the credentials along with each request. So even with /sentmail he will have to send the username and password. But obviously this is not a good solution. So this is where authorization comes into picture. Once a user has been authenticated, for all subsequent requests, the user should be authorized to perform the allowed operations. So once this user, he has logged in with his credentials, he should be authorized to perform all operations by the Gmail server. Authorization can be implemented in two ways, using session management, using JSON Web Token. Let us first have a look at authorization using session management. In case of session management, once the user has been authenticated, the Gmail server will create a unique session ID. Corresponding to this session ID, it will store in memory all the user information that is needed by the Gmail server for recognizing the user and allowing it to perform operations. When using session management, the user will be sending a HTTP request to the Gmail server with the URL /login and also will be passing the credentials along with this request. The Gmail server will then authenticate the user based on the credentials passed. If the authentication is successful, then the Gmail server will create the session information in memory. This session information, it consists of a unique session ID corresponding to which the user information is stored. So this is the user information of the user who has logged in using his credentials. Also now what the Gmail server will do is, along with the response, it will be sending this unique session ID. So the user along with the inbox page, he will also be receiving the session ID. Now suppose the user he wants to access the sent mail page, so he will be sending a HTTP request to the Gmail server with the URL /send, and also now along with this HTTP request it will also be sending the session ID that it had received previously from Gmail. So this session ID, when the Gmail server it will receive it, it will then validate the session ID from the request and retrieve the user information. So once the Gmail server he gets this session ID, it will then get the user information corresponding to this session ID. So it will know that yes, this user he has already logged in and I recognize this user. So then the Gmail server will send the sent mail page back to the user, and also it will be sending the session ID back. So once the user is logged in and the session ID has been created, then in all the subsequent request and the response, the session ID is also sent, and using the session ID the session is maintained and the Gmail server is able to recognize the user. Let us have a look at some of the drawbacks of using session management. So session ID, it is not self-contained, it is a reference token. During each validation, the Gmail server needs to fetch the information corresponding to it. So previously we have seen that a session ID is used to manage the session between the user and Gmail when we are using session management. Session ID on its own, it doesn't contain any user information. All the user information is stored in memory corresponding to the session ID. So session ID is just some kind of a primary key corresponding to which the user information is actually stored. So the Gmail server, on receiving each request, it will have to first go and fetch the corresponding user information, validate it, and then send the response. So some extra processing is required whenever we are using session ID. The next drawback we can state is that session management, it is not suitable for microservices architecture involving multiple APIs and servers. So consider a scenario where suppose the user, he also wants to interact with the Google Drive. So the user, he has already logged into the Gmail server and is interacting with the Gmail server using the session ID. Now suppose he wants to use Google Drive. Both Google Drive and Gmail are Google services, so the user should be able to communicate seamlessly between these services even if he has logged into one of these. Now suppose the user, after getting the sent mail page from Gmail server, wants to fetch some file from Google Drive. So suppose for this the user will send a HTTP request to Google Drive, and along with this HTTP request it will also be sending the session ID. But the Google Drive will not be able to recognize this user as it is not storing any user information corresponding to this session ID. All the user information corresponding to this user ID is being stored by Gmail server and it is being stored in memory. So the Google Drive cannot recognize this user. So it will not be able, so this user, it will not be able to get any files from Google Drive, and it will need to authenticate itself separately with Google Drive. Also now suppose this user, he wants to use some other Google services like Google Maps or Google Hangout. He will need to authenticate itself separately to each of these services. Only then this user can use them. One solution to this problem is to not store the session ID and the corresponding user information in memory, but instead store them externally where all the services can use them. So we will have something like, suppose the session ID and the user information, it is being stored in the external cache. Here both Gmail server as well as Google Drive will be able to access this external cache. Suppose it is Redis, and here it will be able to get the user information corresponding to the session ID. So the same session ID can be used across multiple Gmail services. The major drawback of this approach is single point of failure. So Google, it has hundreds of services. So all these services will depend on this external cache. If this goes down, then all the Google services, they will stop functioning. So this is a major drawback. So we have seen two drawbacks of session management for authorization. One is it is not self-contained, and the other is it is not suitable for microservices architecture where different services they interact with each other. Now let us have a look at how JWT will be used for authorization. So the user, he will again be sending the first request to the URL/login along with the username and password to the Gmail server, and the Gmail server will authenticate the credentials passed by the user. If the authentication is successful, the Gmail server will create a JSON Web Token using a secret key. As the name suggests, the secret key should not be publicly available. Using this secret key, the JSON Web Token will be digitally signed so that if anyone tampers with it, then the Gmail server will know about it. Also, this created JSON Web Token, it is self-contained. It stores all the required user information. So now the Gmail server will also return the inbox page as a response, and along with it, it will also be sending the JSON Web Token. And in all the subsequent request and response, this JSON Web Token will be exchanged between the user and Gmail server. So when the user will now request for the sent mail page, he will also be passing the JSON Web Token, and this JSON Web Token will be validated by the Gmail server, and during this validation also the secret key will be used. Also, as this JSON Web Token, it is self-contained, the Gmail server does not need to fetch the user information from in-memory storage or from some external storage, but JSON Web Token, it contains everything. So only this JSON Web Token is required by the Gmail server for knowing yes if the user is authorized or not to access a particular resource. Also, now suppose the user, he wants to access Google Drive to get some file, he will need to send this JSON Web Token along with this request. If the Google Drive, it also has the same secret key that is there with Gmail, then it can easily validate the JSON Web Token and get the user information and then send the required information back to the user. But for this, the services, they need to share the secret key. So unlike session ID or session management, Using JSON Web Token across multiple microservices is much easier. Next, let us have a look at the advantages of JSON Web Token. So JSON Web Token, it is self-contained. It is a value token. So unlike the session ID, which was a reference token, this JSON Web Token, it is a value token and it contains all the required information within itself. So during each validation, the Gmail server does not need to fetch this information corresponding to it. So we had seen previously that if session ID is used, the Gmail server would need to fetch the user information using the session ID from some external or internal memory. In case of JSON Web Token, this is not required, as the JSON Web Token, it contains all the information within itself. The next advantage is it is digitally signed, so that if anyone modifies it, the server will know. So if the Gmail server, it receives a JSON Web Token which has been tampered with, then the Gmail server will know about it. So it is secure. In the next tutorial, when we'll be looking at the structure of JSON Web Token, that time we'll know that how JSON Web Token, it is self-contained and how it can be digitally signed. The next advantage is it is more suitable for microservices architecture. So we have seen this, that any service which has the secret key can also validate and use the JSON Web Token. It has other advantages like we can specify the expiration time. So this is not possible when using the session ID. Hope you have understood this tutorial. In the next tutorial, we'll be looking at the JSON Web Token structure.